Welcome to the Zinnov podcast. You're listening to our Business Resilience series, where we bring to you conversations between eminent industry stalwarts and thought leaders from across the globe as they discuss their insights on overcoming challenges and the mindset that help them navigate the journey of crisis, resilience, and growth.
Welcome to another episode of the Business Resilience series on the Zinnov podcast. I'm your host, Pari Natarajan, the CEO of Zinnov. We have a very special guest joining us today, Denis Lacroix, the president of Amadeus, a leading provider of cutting-edge technology solutions driving the global travel industry forward. With over 25 years of invaluable experience navigating the dynamic travel and technology sectors, Denis has been the visionary leader propelling Amadeus' bold strategies and execution. Under his stewardship, the company has soared to new heights, deftly overcoming the severe challenges faced by the industry during COVID. Welcome, Denis, for the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Pari, and congratulations for having pronounced my name correctly. I'm impressed.
I did practice before the podcast. Great, let's get started. Before we dive in, Denis, I wanted to ask a little bit about your experience. You have been with Amadeus for over 15 years. Can you elaborate on how the unique dynamics of the travel industry has changed? And how have they influenced your journey at Amadeus, particularly the impact of global events and evolving customer expectations?
Sure. So, Pari, I'm going to go back in time. Unfortunately, I've been Amadeus for 35 years, so a bit longer than what you said. My background, just to be clear, my background is in computer science. I have a master in computer science. Started my career at IBM in the US, in New York. And then I joined another computer manufacturer called Digital Equipment. And my background was very much operating system development. Okay, so hardcore software engineering. Okay. And then I joined Amadeus. So that was, 1989, which was very much a startup at the time in the travel tech sector. To be fair, I don't think I knew exactly what Amadeus was up to when I joined the company. But I thought it was interesting that this company was being put together with some pretty high ambition. And I decided to actually jump and join what was called the Amadeus Project, and it's now known as Amadeus IT, the company. The business model is also very interesting, and it ties into your specific question about resiliency. The way we charge our customers is essentially a pay-per-use type of model. So if I look at our commercial IT solution for an airline, we actually charge the airline for the service we offer, for the product they use when the passenger is boarding the plane. And same thing for an agency, having made this content available to the travel sector, we charge the content provider, so the airline, the hotelier, the current companies, when a booking is made. Now, COVID happened, and all of us stopped flying, all of us stopped traveling. So, by and large, for the first half of 2020, our business just went away. We just had no more revenues. Our revenues were divided by a factor of 10. So the company was deeply in trouble. Now, we were fortunate, I would say, for two reasons. First of all, the company was very strong and had the cash to actually, go through this very difficult period, continue to pay salaries, all the things that you have to do when you're in survival mode. And then it didn't last long. Within 6 months of, let's say, the bad first 6 months of 2020, things started to pick up again, okay? And it's been a slow but steady recovery since. To the extent that today, if I just look at the airline industry only, we're now above volume-wise, or in terms of the number of passengers, we're now above the 2019 figures, and that's true across all geographies. It's true in North America, it's true in Europe, it's true in India. So we're very much out of the woods. So very difficult period, 2020, 2021, very difficult. The company wasn't really fundamentally at risk, was deeply in trouble, but we had the cash to actually essentially, sit tight and wait for the recovery.
It's amazing how resilient the company Amadeus has been, and going through that tough time, and especially some of the governments were supporting the companies, yes. and that could also potentially have helped, but the resilience to even continue to pay salaries for employees, I'm pretty sure that was a very tough time.
It was difficult, but we were able to actually survive on our own and now successful. Another thing that has happened that's actually very interesting. When something really bad happens like this, it has forced many actors in the industry to reconsider their plans. So specifically for our Air 90 commercial offering, what has happened is that the airlines that were deeply in trouble and that were running their own reservation system, their own inventory, their own departure control system, realized that they were faced with essentially a fixed cost, which they couldn't do anything about. So that has actually allowed us in that period to actually grow our market share. I mean, this is not something that we truly expected, but we have gained market share pretty much, in fact, across all our businesses during that period, because the crisis has forced many of customers we would have loved to have to actually reconsider their plans. And of course, when they embrace one of the Amadeus product, their fixed costs become variable costs. And they realize the value of this going through the crisis and not being able to fly anymore.
Yeah, and I'm seeing interesting that you have moved into a pay-per-use model even before like a SaaS became the in thing, right? You almost have operated in that model even before that.
Yes, no, it's actually quite interesting. I mean, SaaS is the rage. I mean, everybody on the planet wants to go SaaS. So, when you hear, very large company, the likes of course, Adobe, I mean, all those busy guys trying to go from a license model towards essentially close to a pay-per-use model, I would say, okay. It's quite funny because that's always the ways we've been operating. I mean, I think we were doing SaaS, not even knowing what SaaS was, okay. But yes, Amadeus was born as a product company and a pure SaaS player. I mean, everything, all the systems used by our customers are actually hosted by us, and there's nothing running locally within our customers' premise.
Amazing. And Denny, one of the things you didn't touch upon is also you have deep experience in building out global organizations and global teams. Could you share your experience in setting up these teams in multiple countries?
Yes.
What specific? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, so it's very interesting. So I think as a company, in our DNA, we had what I would call almost an unfair advantage. And let me elaborate a bit. The company in the early days was created by 4 European airlines. So you have Lufthansa from Germany, Air France from France, Iberia from Spain, and SAS from Scandinavia. So the 3 countries in Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Now, so from very early on, okay, this was a multicultural setup. It wasn't a French company, it wasn't a Spanish company, it was multicultural from day one. That has created a very specific culture. From the beginning, even if a year or two before I joined, in the late 80s, early 90s, we had grown. We grew accustomed to working in a multicultural environment. Okay, and the next thing that happened for our distribution business, one of the key success factors of our distribution business was our ability to actually blanket the world very, very quickly with this capability to aggregate content and make it available to agencies. Now, if you are on this big plan to blanket the world, you have to learn how to work with more than 150 countries. In fact, we often joke, I don't know, it's a good thing that we actually operate in more countries than McDonald's. I'm not sure it's a good thing, but that's the way it is. So I think it's part of our DNA to a large extent. And this actually allows us very quickly spread our products and our services across the world. Very, very different, for example, if we were a pure French player or a pure US company that would have been, for example, very successful in the US and then trying to actually all over the world, okay? So we had a somewhat unfair advantage in our DNA, which is something we cultivate. It's quite fundamental. I'm based in Nice, in the south of France, so there's a bit more than 4,300 employees in this site. We have 92 nationalities in this site. So I'm French myself, and so we all speak broken English, essentially, because there's very few native English speakers. So it does create something quite fundamental. And I think this multicultural things within our genes is a pretty big reason we've been successful as a company.
It's very interesting, like how your Nice is considered as a tourist destination for most of the people in the world, but you're running a very diverse technology team, and that allowed you to set up operations in India and other locations. It's very interesting, like how the culture of the company, the DNA, allowed it to seamlessly build these teams. I'm diving into the hottest topic right now is how AI is enabling developers to be more productive. And suddenly every customer I speak to, there is a huge question about how do I measure productivity? 50 years, we haven't solved the measurement of productivity in engineering, but there are a lot of questions around how do I measure productivity? I have teams across. My teams in India, there's some more junior teams. We have teams in different locations. Eastern Europe is slightly senior. Like, how do I compare productivity? Like, have you figured this out?
Yeah. So, I don't think we can say with you else. And as you correctly said, this discussion around the productivity of software engineering has been going on, I guess, since software was invented. Now, a couple of things here. Our take on that is that it starts with the kind of talent you're able to attract. There is this famous quote, which I'm not sure is true, is that, between one engineer and another, there can be a factor of 10 in productivity. I'm not sure factor of 10 is true, but definitely there's a difference. So if you're able, being a product company, high profile, high tech, being able to attract top talent is a big differentiator. And by the way, that's how we differentiate ourselves with service company. We tell them, you're going to the product development, it's going to be much harder, and we want much brighter people than maybe you would get on average. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, GenAI is interesting. Obviously, we are testing all this. We haven't gone as far as doing proper A/B testing, asking a large team to do something with something like GitHub Copilot and asking another team to do it without and then measure the results, because it would be kind of expensive, okay? Also mechanically fairly hard to put in place. We are, however, deploying GenAI across our engineering base, not just for software, for coding, okay? It can help you a lot when you have to create a test harness, for example. I mean, one thing developers hate is the unit test, okay? They tend not to do it. Now, if we can give them a bit of help to actually invest a bit more time in doing proper unit testing, okay, then we know we're going to gain in the long term because we'll have a higher quality and less rework and so on. What are we going to gain in the end? I think it's fair that no one knows. There have been some publicly quoted numbers, specifically by the providers themselves, I mean, people like GitHub and others, okay? I would take the figures that they quote with a pinch of salt, okay? They are also trying to sell you something, so always be a bit careful about what they claim. There are advantages. I've used it myself. I mean, an example that my colleagues make fun of is that I have a fancy home automation setup, which is unfortunately not written by me, but the system is written in PHP. Now, I hate this language, okay? I can do C++, I can do Java, but PHP, I just hate it. GitHub Copilot has actually helped me to do a few things that I would have never touched with a 10-foot pole before. So I'm going to try really, really hard to not become a PHP proficient developer, because that's not my goal in life. But I was able to do some things that before I would not have done. I was also able to use GenAI to actually explain some of the code I was looking at. You're in front of, like, in my case, 300 lines of PHP code, which makes no sense at all. To say, okay, what's going on, okay? And GenAI actually allowed me to actually be a bit less shy about the idea of actually diving into this and actually doing some changes. So there are some benefits. I'm sure there are some benefits. Whether you gain 1%, 5%, 10%, I think nobody knows. But we've made the gamble to go ahead and do it. We think and it's also, to be honest, an expectation of the engineers themselves. We did not face the problem of our engineering community. We have a bit more than 10,000 engineers in engineering. We did not have the problem that they were threatened in any shape or form. I guess it was pretty cool. So what we gain in the end, we're not sure.
One of the things we have done some benchmarks. One of the things we found is making global development easier, because, like you said, easy to understand the code which has been written by other teams. It's describing, so transitioning work between one location and another, working together as a team across different locations seems to get better. We're more confident. Teams are more confident they can understand the code base and so on.
No, I completely believe this, and it's exactly what I did when I was looking at this obscure thousands of lines of PHP code. Clearly, this could help. Clearly, when we opened up our R&D center in Bangalore, one of the big topic was knowledge transfer. How do you get the people up to speed? And as we actually gave our site product ownership, okay, for perhaps a product which was before owned by one of our engineering sites in Nice or maybe in London or somewhere else in the world. At the time, the only way we found to fix this was by flying people. Okay, so we relocated some of engineers to Bangalore. Some of our Bangalore engineers come to Nice for an extended period of time. It works. It's expensive. It's a bit slow as well. So it is indeed quite possible that GenAI can actually help us transition. It's quite possible. I believe that.
And one of the things you mentioned is the travel industry is going through this massive changes over the last few years, coming out of COVID, rapidly growing, new technology, new standards coming in. How do you continue to innovate and create value to your customers who also went through a tough time?
Yes. No, it boils down to a couple of things. So first, you truly have to listen to the customers. And when I say listen, it's not so much to listen to understand what they're telling you. So for example, one of the big things going on in the airline industry is the ability to behave like a retailer. Okay. So they would love to actually know you better as a customer. They would love to also contemplate selling you more than just a straight flight. So this big retailing transformation, which is supported by some of the fundamental industry standards coming out, such as in our industry, there are things called NDC, IATA order, IATA offer, and those things are actually supporting this move, where airlines want to be a lot more sophisticated and behave a lot more like a retailer. You see the same thing with agencies, specifically with the online agencies. You could argue they've been at this for longer than airlines, but there's still a lot of work to be done. It's down to personalization as well. If I am, an elite flyer on a given airline, I would expect that this airline, when I'm actually buying more from them, they do something different. And it's easier said than done. In our industry, it takes quite some fundamental changes to actually enable this level of retailing behavior, this level of personalization that now customers want. So I'm not sure airlines are ever going to behave like a Flipkart or an Amazon. Okay, that's probably a bit far-fetched, but that's definitely the direction they want to go into. And that's what we're supporting very clearly, the way we evolve our product.
And it's interesting. And one of the things you get a benefit of being in a location like Bangalore is you have all of the large retail companies driving the global innovation from that location. So there's a lot of knowledge, fungibility of knowledge based on what is happening in the ecosystem.
Yes, and there is that, and something also that we like about, there's a few things happening in India that we don't see yet anywhere else. For example, payment, okay? The mobile payments, which I think in India is actually a government-sponsored solution, okay? That's quite unique. It's quite remarkable. We have had to adapt, obviously, because that's the way people would like now to buy things. But we like that not only because it's just very practical and very powerful, but this is probably a sign of things to come in many, many more geographies. Obviously, China have something equivalent, using WeChat or whatever. But we think something similar is going to happen elsewhere in the world. So we do have maybe yet again another unfair advantage by being able to witness this in India.
Great. Denis, thanks a lot for the conversation. We covered a whole lot of things in a very short time. The changes happening in the travel industry, building a global culture within the company, and that is allowing you to grow your organization, the impact of using AI and helping your customers transform into more, providing their consumers a personalized retail-like experience. It was super insightful. I look forward to hosting you at a Confluence in July this year and spend more time together to discuss what's happening in the industry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pari. I look forward to see you in July.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. We'll be back soon with another leader, another exciting topic. Till then, take care and stay curious.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Business Resilience Series. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com. Follow us on Twitter @Zinnov for regular updates on our content. Thank you again for listening to the Business Resilience Series of the Zinnov Podcast.